Thanks for tuning into Black Girl in America TV. I want to come on here to set the record straight once and for all. Everybody wants to know if Jada Pinkett Smith sold drugs. I will say this before I get started. I am not here to bash Jada Pinkett Smith, but I want to talk about if Jada Pinkett ever sold drugs. Before I tell y'all the answer, I will say Jada Pinkett Smith is in fact from Baltimore, Maryland. And the reason why I'm making this clear, because there's a lot of people that claims that they're from Baltimore and they're in fact not from Baltimore. For example, the Braxton family, mainly Tamar Braxton, she always talk about she's from Baltimore, Maryland. She's from the trenches. She's from the ghetto. She's from the hood. No, she's not. She lived outside of Baltimore. She lived in a small, quiet county outside of South Baltimore. I want to get that straight. Yes, Jada Pinkett is from Baltimore, Maryland. I remember when she first came out with her book and she was going around promoting her book, she said that she sold drugs. And I already knew the answer when she came out with the book. But lately she did an interview on a podcast and gave specifics.
So it's one way in and it's one way out. So it's like in Baltimore, it's a peninsula. So it's one way in and it's one way out. But it's the projects, right? And so I was able to find a spot at the bottom of the hill. Everybody was at the top, so everybody had to go to the top to be served. And I was like, well, I'm gonna just go.
Cut the line.
Yeah, I'm gonna just go to the bottom down here, find an apartment. I had my homeboy, who I call him BP, I believe, in the book. I was under his wing, his protection. He also worked for Chet, right? But he was my homeboy, and so I posted up in an apartment down there. And then I got set up one day.
To answer y'all question, Jada Pinkett Smith never sold drugs. She never sold drugs. Again, Jada Pinkett Smith never sold drugs. I don't know why she's so heavy on wanting to sell drugs. Jada is trying so hard to be this drug dealer. And no, she didn't sell drugs. Now, before Jada Pinkett Smith became famous, she went with this guy named Piccolo. And a lot of y'all don't know that the little part that she played on A Different World when her old boyfriend came, Tupac starred as her old boyfriend, and his name was Piccolo. That was real. She really had a boyfriend named Piccolo.
Cause girl, we got a surprise for you. What? Play Piccolo.
L to the J. What's happening, baby?
So, yes, Jada Pinkett Smith went with a drug dealer named Piccolo in Baltimore, Maryland. And he wasn't like this kingpin. You know, he was doing okay for himself. He had a little name, but he wasn't like this big-time drug dealer. He was just like a well-known guy in Cherry Hill. Now, I'm not saying Jada Pinkett did do this, but a lot of times back in those days in the 80s and 90s, when a guy was selling drugs, he had his main girlfriend that he trusted maybe to hold his stash. And that means hold their bags of drugs, their guns, their money. Maybe Jada did that. I would assume that was a thing to do that girlfriends did when it came to having drug dealer boyfriends in that era. But far-wise as selling drugs, Jada Pinkett never sold drugs. And Jada Pinkett family was also very well off, so she didn't have to sell drugs. And even when we heard of her going with this guy, a lot of people even was shocked. You have this wealthy family. Your mother is married to a lawyer, a big-time lawyer in Baltimore, Maryland. Why are you out Cherry Hill messing with drug dealers? She didn't have to mess with a drug dealer. But, you know, when you're young, you do rebellious things. And you know how that is. Good girls want to be with the bad guys. And one thing about Baltimore, the female drug dealers, we know about them. They're pretty much legends to this day because it was so rare for that era. The only thing that Jada was known for in Baltimore, Maryland, was she went with Piccolo. That was from Cherry Hill. That was all. Jada Pinkett went with a drug dealer named Piccolo. So to answer y'all question and to put that rumor to rest, Jada Pinkett was outside, is what y'all would say today. Her footprints is all over Baltimore, but Jada Pinkett never sold drugs. And I want to say this. It kind of upsets me because it's like people like Jada Pinkett that got out of Baltimore and made it to this worldwide celebrity celebrity. And then you get to Hollywood and you start telling these stories and you start rearranging your real life story. It makes me think, do they look down upon people in their hometown, people that from Baltimore that personally knew them, to the fact where they think less of us, where they don't care if the truth get out or not? I don't care if they even know the real story. It kind of like show a form of disrespect to me, if that makes sense. To end it, Jada Pinkett never sold drugs. I'm speaking on the behalf of Baltimore, Maryland, that was really there in that time, in that era, in the 80s, in the early 90s, when she claimed she was selling drugs. Until next time, YouTube, peace.
So you're a philosopher? Yes.